guys, this is Solid Shepard bringing you another video. And basically in this video, I just wanted to talk about the confirmation of the Rito tribe in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That bird race that we thought was another race because there were some characteristics that seemed to be different is in fact just a Rito. Now I know what y'all are probably thinking, why am I covering news that is like a week old? Well, I'm not going to really cover it. We all pretty much, if you know anything about Breath of the Wild, then you know about this. So we all know about that. What I want to cover in this video is what it means for the timeline placement. Because that's the thing everyone likes to speculate and talk about in Legend of Zelda is the timeline placement. Or I guess a better way of saying it would be what it doesn't mean for it. Now everyone thinks, okay, well, the Koroks were already shown to be in the game a long time ago. And then people see like a ruined Temple of Time. And then on top of that, people see the Rito, it's confirmed the Rito, so like, oh, so it's in the child timeline. Or, my bad, not the child timeline, in the adult timeline. Here's my problem with that little theory. Is it's never, there's a few problems. I'm going to pretty much go over all of them in this video, but it's never really expressly stated that the Rito evolved from the Zora because of the Great Ocean. It's never really said that's the reason why. It was to survive. But what do we have in Breath in the Wild? We have Calamity Ganon fucking shit up, so they have another reason to do it, just like the Koroks do. Okay, so in Wind Waker, it was shown that these two races had the ability to either transform or evolve to survive. Whether that's the magic that is in The Legend of Zelda, or if it's by natural means, which is unlikely to be natural means. But it's happened. And then, just saying that, I actually just thought of something. To where it's actually tough for me to say that because they obviously existed before Calamity Ganon. But so perhaps the Zora evolved to the Rito. They were eventually going to do it anyways, at least part of their species. And people can say, well, why would they evolve? They haven't evolved before. Well, that's not completely true. You have the River Zora and other Zelda games. You have other instances of them evolving to fit their surroundings. So what probably happened is, for some reason, a sect of the Zora tribe got moved somewhere else, say like in the mountains or whatever, and then they evolved, whether through natural or magical means, to fit their surroundings, and that's all it is. The only thing that Wind Waker really proved was they can do it given the right circumstances. They can evolve from a fish people to a bird people. It doesn't have to make sense in the real world. This is The Legend of Zelda, and it makes sense in the world of The Legend of Zelda, the universe of The Legend of Zelda. It's happened before. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the Great Flood. In fact, I guarantee you it's not. And where I think this is being placed is, in fact, in the child timeline after Twilight Princess. And the reason why I believe that is because, once again, in the trailers that we've seen, you see these the Guardians, the big machine, like spider-looking things, attacking what looks like Castletown, and you can see in the center of Castletown, you can see this fountain surrounded by flags, and the design on the middle of the top of the middle of the fountain is slightly different, but you can tell still it's the same thing, because the red flags all the way around look the same, only they're tattered because some major shit went down. And, it's all pretty much the same. And then on top of that, the Temple of Time up on the Great Plateau is likely, 100%. No matter what theory you look at, 100% is a Temple of Time from Ocarina of Time. But it just fits too much towards it being after Twilight Princess. And on top of that, I'm sure a lot of people know there are, how would I say, not like hieroglyphs, but like pictures depicted in the stone from when you're in that area I was just talking about that has the fountain and everything. But the little walkway that you walk up to the stairs to get to Hyrule Castle in Twilight Princess, it depicts a bird-like people, a Goron that looks a lot like the Goron that we saw in the trailer, and Link, and some farmer-looking man. Some people speculated this man is actually Ganondorf, while others say maybe it's not, maybe it's someone else. But it seems to basically depict from what we're seeing in Breath of the Wild. It seemed like it was a hint left by Aonuma. So, there's that. So, like, all the signs to me actually point towards it being after Breath of the Wild. It just just in the things that have happened in this world since the end of Twilight Princess, some of the stuff that some of these races, mainly the Kokori and the Zora, were forced to do, happened also after Twilight Princess and the years that happened after. That's all that means. Now you might be going, okay, but then how can there be Zora and Rito? Well, like I said, it's likely that a branch, much like the River Zoras in the Downfall timeline, a branch of the Zora like either decided to or had to move somewhere else, and then they became the Rito that way. But you still have the Zora who are still in Lake Hylia, who are still the Zoras as we know them. That's likely how all that happened. It's not, crazy to think that couldn't happen. I mean, if you are an evolutionist and all of that, it'd be, you believe that we came from, primates, right? Monkeys. Well, how can monkeys exist if we exist? Just because we know that some of them stayed in their habitat and others decided to go forth. That's just if you believe that. If you don't believe that, it's cool. But I'm using it as a, saying it's the same concept. So the Zora can exist with the Rito. It's not crazy to imagine that. It's just some of them left and some of them stayed in Lake Hylia. Obviously, in Wind Waker, that wasn't an option because Lake Hylia was not Lake Hylia anymore. It was a giant ocean. So all the surviving Zora had to basically flee, because there's a big difference between a lake water and salt water, fresh water. There's a big difference between those, and they were not equipped to live and survive in salt water, so they had to climb for the mountains, and they had to all basically become Rito. But in this situation, only some of them did. And as far as the Koroks go, it's the same thing. Circumstances changed, and they had to take their Korok forms in this timeline, much like they did in the other timeline. If I am indeed right, and Breath of the Wild is in the child timeline after Ocarina of Time, after Majora's Mask, after Twilight Princess, then something happened where they had to take that form in this timeline also. These two ideas are not crazy. So seeing the Koroks and the Rito being, confirmed in the game does not mean the adult timeline. It does not mean the Wind Waker timeline. Okay, it is not a confirmation of anything. In fact, I doubt it, because the last we saw in the Wind Waker, unless this is a prequel to the Wind Waker, in which case, why would they already be evolved? Because the Korok and the Rito, it was confirmed in the game of Wind Waker that they evolved because of the Great Flood. They wouldn't be evolved before the Great Flood already. At least not 100% evolved. So that doesn't make any sense. So anyways, like I said, but it is possible they could stretch the details a little bit, and it could be a prequel, and the canon ending could be Link failing ultimately to stop Calamity Ganon, and then Hyrule floods, and that could be the canon ending to Breath of the Wild. But I doubt it, especially because where we see the Master Sword in Breath of the Wild, and the fact that it was placed in the basement of Hyrule Castle in Wind Waker, that doesn't really fit either. Because in that timeline, that's where the Master Sword ended up. Its final resting place was in the basement of Hyrule Castle, which I believe, because that Hyrule Castle was actually built around the old Temple of Time, but we see the Temple of Time on the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild, and it is a completely different place than the current Hyrule Castle. So there's that too. So anyways, that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying my thoughts. I believe if I had to pick a place with these things being said, I would think it would actually make more sense of what we know right now for it to be in the child timeline after Twilight Princess. I still don't think this is any, these the Koroks and the Rito are not indicative of it being in the Wind Waker's timeline at all. In fact, there's too much evidence to support it not being in that one. So we can pretty much take that one off completely. It's going to either be the Downfall timeline or the Child timeline. And my money's on the Child timeline. So because, if nothing else, if you ignore the evidence that is brought up with the stuff in Twilight, the evidence they put in Twilight Princess and it being the same fountain and all that, if you take all that out of it, if for nothing else, Nintendo probably wants to add more games into the other timelines because there's a lot in the Downfall timeline. So from that instance, as a business standpoint, it only makes sense. Anyways, that's all I really got to say about it. Let me know what you guys think. This is just a topic video. This is for discussion. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I will see you guys there. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, this has been Solid Shepard, and I should go.